very good afternoon everybody, and thank you so much for joining us at the ICA Design Forum 2024. The second panel discussion that we are having is on crafting luxury for the Indian consumer, a very pertinent topic. Honestly, if you ask me, luxury is in the DNA of Indian design. Look at our palaces, look at our temples, look at the craftsmanship that our country has. So luxury is something which is absolutely not new to our country. It's ingrained in the DNA. We have about 3,000 different types of crafts that come from across the country. We have villages and villages dedicated to these crafts. We have an abundance of natural resources. Some of the best marble, stone comes from our country. And the human touch. That's one luxury that we as consumers in India are blessed with. And along with all of these luxuries, today we have some of the best designers who are creating luxury for the Indian consumer from across the country. It is the way our architecture is designed, the courtyards, the way light streams in, the air circulation, the trellises. There are so many elements to traditional Indian design, which is now being taken in the modern context by some of the fabulous panelists that we have on board. And we're going to discuss this subject with them today. But one point before we get to, which is a discussion I had with Iram as well, luxury is a lot of things. Luxury is space, luxury is light. Most importantly, luxury is what brings you happiness. Our panelists today have come from across the country and are redefining luxury in so many different ways. Shantanu comes from the land of palaces and is redefining luxury for some of the most beautiful boutique hotels he's designed, some fabulous luxury projects that he's worked on, homes, and he's taken Indian traditional design to another level now. Some of his projects are about contextualizing design and integrating them with bespoke elements, as you can see in this video. We have Iram Sultan, the lady with a heart of gold from Delhi. She is somebody who connects beautifully with the Indian consumer and understands the requirement, the emotion, and creates luxury with an emotion. In fact, she very rightly and beautifully said that luxury is an emotion. Luxury is both a science and an art. Most importantly, luxury is a sense of belonging. Some of the projects here on screen. Next we have from Bangalore, Farah Ahmed. Farah is known and focusing currently on creating spaces that have a sensory touch, spaces that are unique, spaces that are using materials in unique manners. And I'm looking forward to having these discussions with Farah. Some of her projects, which is talking about, I also had a very interesting comment from Farah yesterday where she was talking about how luxury is not just a flavor, it is about finding beauty and perfection in the mundane. I'm sure we'll allow. Next up, we have the lovely Rupande Shah from Kolkata, lady who's on a marathon of designing luxury projects, and she has this lovely magic touch that we want to know how she delivers traditional, fuses traditional design in a modern context. Looking forward to the conversation with her. We have Gowri Adappa from Chennai, who is known so much for creating eclectic design, which is yet rooted in tradition. I'm looking forward to the conversation with her. Welcome. Some of her work, it's about celebrating craftsmanship through design. And of course, from the industry side, we have the fabulous Manish Airee. He is from ICA and he's going to give us insights on the Indian consumer from the industry perspective. Can I please invite all my panelists to join me on stage as we start the panel discussion. Thank you everybody for joining us today, and I'm really looking forward to, I hope I did a little justice to showing a little glimpse of the work that you do to our audience, so there's a little bit of context. So what I'm going to do is I've already seeded some thoughts about each one of your definitions of luxury to the audience, and I would like to probably start one by one, and maybe Farah, you can tell us about how you define luxury and how you are translating it into design in so many manners currently.
Hi, I'm Farah. So for me, luxury is perfection on a daily basis. it's not that one-off vacation or it's not that special occasion. I think luxury needs to be experienced every day, and it needs to be experienced perfectly, and irrespective of cost. So somebody recently asked me if I could associate luxury with a flavor, what flavor would I think of? And immediately I thought of the most expensive food like a foie gras or truffle pasta. But actually, when I did a double take, for me, luxury would be a perfect sunny side up egg without the drip, the perfect dal chawal without the soggy white rice, and that has to be experienced every day. And it's comfortable. Luxury should be comfortable. There's no point in buying a super expensive sofa because it looks beautiful but never use it because it's maybe too low or too wide. So that defines luxury for me, perfection and uniqueness.
Fantastic. I believe all our designers love food. I can hear a lot of conversation about food since morning today. Rupande, would you like to take this question and tell us what does luxury mean to you?
Good afternoon, everybody. And luxury, for me, luxury is relative, firstly. Is exactly as Farah said, that to some people, to her it's dal chawal, to me it's my khichdi. Luxury is very relative, but it is a sense of comfort. I feel you need to be yourself. You need to be able to associate with that element, whether it is a color, whether it's a texture or anything. Unless you associate with it, I cannot relate to it as luxury. I need to understand that this is a part of my DNA and my luxury sensibilities kind of stuff.
Fantastic. Would you have a very good connect with your clients, your customers, and I'm sure understand a lot of their psychology before designing. So would you like to elaborate a bit on how that works when it comes to designing the luxury?
Thank you, and thank you ITP for having all of us here. I think luxury, I agree with Farah and Rupande, and I think I speak for everybody on the panel. We all have our own thoughts on it. But our role as designers, I think we're primarily storytellers. And we don't tell our own stories, ideally we tell somebody else's story. The homes that we design, the offices, the commercial spaces, they're not really ours. So how do you investure a sense of belonging? How do you introduce that warmth, that sense of harmony? When I come home, there's an instant sense of comfort when I walk through. That is the intent behind design with emotion, or bringing that into a space that makes it yours. And I don't mean yours as mine, but yours as the person who you're designing for. So we tell stories for somebody else. I think a big tool for me is something I shared with Sumisha, is empathy, the ability to walk in the client's shoes. Not the easiest, not the most convenient way to be. I know we all have stories to tell. But I think the end result at the end of the day of the client coming in and feeling like they have found their home, their dal chawal or their truffle, whatever it may be. And I think dal chawal and truffle are equally luxurious. It's you who gives it that meaning. So defining meaning through emotion is what I would define luxury as.
Fantastic, I totally agree with you. Shantanu, would you like to take this question? You come from the land of luxury, the land of palaces. Tell us, what does luxury mean to you?
For me, luxury lies in a visual. Like, I absolutely like mystery of things happening in a space, and yet they dwell in harmony. So for me, I don't want to shy away. Like, I don't want to make luxury subtle. I want to make luxury shout that it is special. So for me, it is about carefully putting pieces in a space. For me, it is about, of course, it has to be relative. Luxury should gesture or narrate a particular context or a story. So of course, for me, contextualizing design is the utmost important, because, and by integrating a lot of made-to-measure and bespoke elements, which are especially crafted to imbibe in a project, or imbibe a narrative in a project, that is something that's really important for me, and that is what is luxury to me. It's like a jewelry, like in jewelry, when you see every piece of gemstone is so carefully installed in a collet. It is because it is as full. That is how we have to compose all our elements in a space, so that it is it is well read and it feels special.
Absolutely agree with you, and I think even if you go to social media feed or anywhere, I see perfection, and that's something that probably comes across in your work as well, Shantanu. Gowri, would you like to take the question?
Hi everyone, I'm Gowri. I feel luxury sometimes suffers overuse, it's a prefix to almost everything that we experience these days. But for me and how I design, luxury lies in details, and I strongly believe in supporting local crafts and artisans, and I make sure I use them in all my projects, whether it's antiques, whether it's material, whether it's textiles. I feel like India has so much to offer. We don't need to look outside, we just have to look within our country, our cities, and that's where luxury lies. And it almost gives a very nostalgic story to your projects, which I love saying. I love that narrative. I love watching the client kind of glow when they come to the space and they relate to a few objects or textiles or materials. So we take a lot of care and we make sure we employ craftsmen and artisans locally from Pondicherry, and that's where luxury is, because if you look like an atelier like Vastrakala, they are providing their services to Chanel. So you don't have to look outside of the country. I feel like luxury exists in our country, and celebrating India and putting India on a global platform is something that's very important to us as a practice, and yeah, that's where I think luxury lies.
I'm going to actually come back to that with another question on that, but let's hear from Manish's definition of luxury before we get on.
So, as you know, I am representing a luxury brand, and as part of our work, we end up doing a lot of research around consumers and what the consumers look at luxury. So, I think more than my own definition, I like to reflect on the when we do the research and what the consumers are saying. When we talk about 30x growth in luxury in India, etc., the realization is that most of this growth is coming from consumers who are relatively new rich. Okay, these are the people who have got an access to luxury maybe in the recent past. These are not necessarily the people who had an access to luxury over a longer period of time. And when you speak to them, for them the first thing is that they want to announce to the world that we have arrived. Okay. And from that point of view, maybe the kind of design that Shantanu is talking about, I mean, it is studded jewelry kind of a design, and that kind of a luxury is something that we are looking forward to. And many times when I come to design events, and maybe I always think that when I come to the design events, I realize I hear the designers and I see where we are headed. But when I speak to the consumers, probably that is where the real present comes to you. And many times very subtle designs are presented, whereas the Indian consumer is still looking at a kind of that's at least the research tells at our end. Now, basis that, if I say how it affects our work, water-based PU is something that we are trying to drive very strongly, because we think that in the wood coating space, water-based can bring about that change, and it's a very environment conscious product. But as Ajay presented some time back, it is only 5% of our business that it comes from water-based PU, while there is so much of talk around it. So, somebody also said that you have to walk the talk. And today, the steps that as an organization we are taking is that how do we make two things we are trying to do. One is that within the water-based range, we are making it sure that whether if you want metallics, you should be able to get metallics. You want subtle colors, pastels, you should be able to get open port, closed port. So I think that is how we are as a business trying to contribute to the cause of environment friendliness. And I think this is probably, together as industry and designers, what we need to see is that if we really want to seed in environment friendliness in the consumer, maybe the first thing is that it is not compromising on your aesthetics. Because that is something in our understanding, or whatever our research tells us, is that aesthetics come paramount, and then rest of things follow.
Absolutely, and I think that's a nice insight into what the Indian consumer wants, which is a question I'm sure all of us have. So, what I would want to also know from each one of you is, you've defined what luxury means to you, but could you give me an example of a project that each of you have worked on where you think is successful in showcasing this definition of luxury that you have? Maybe we can start with you.
Again, like you've heard us all speak, I think our definitions of luxury vary, and I think that's the only way to go. For me, I think I've been successful in. Sonali says I need to be louder, so is that better? I think the definition of luxury is really also defined by the person that you're working with, the client that you're working with. Between a commercial project and a residential project, you will have different requirements. For me, I can talk about two projects. We worked with DLF on a project, which was a sales gallery for a launch of one of their projects, which was a low-rise housing project, but defined as a luxury project. We worked on the sales gallery, and our job was to create a context. We were not doing the sample flat, we were not designing the sample flat. We needed to bring the ethos of that luxury space into a commercial space and make the person who entered that space have that feeling of A, of course, wanting to explore that project further, and B, wanting to buy that project. There is a commercial aspect to that. The sense of luxury came from the context that was given in a commercial project. It wasn't about only necessarily what the project looked like. It was, again, I go back to the word emotion. It was the feelings that it evoked. The project was called Grove. And our design tools were very simple. We had extra large overscale trees in the middle of the space that brought to sense the large green areas that DLF is building. So that was a nod to the sense of nature, which is also very, very important, and we'll talk about that with some of us. Second, the name Grove, it brought context. Third, it added that richness just visually, and Shantanu was saying we're all visual people at the end of the day. Fourth, what is Grove? It's where birds go to nest at the end of the day. It's like we go home, birds go home. You would bring that sense of warmth, that belonging, that comfort. Everyone on this panel has talked about comfort, and I'm sure everyone in the room also feels the same way. That was a commercial story, but it had to be told with a sense of intimacy. For homes, every client has their own version of luxury. There are clients with whom I work with where there is a great sense of luxury maybe associated with art, something I personally enjoy deeply, and Shantanu, see, I'm speaking about it. It's a little joke, very important. But that's a client who you empathize with and you have a sense of community with, and that your approach to that project is similar. There are homes where a client's perception of luxury has been in the colors that brings them comfort. Shantanu is very, very good with color. My spaces are much quieter in comparison. How do you bring that to a client who has that requirement? That is their version of luxury. There could be a client, it's all about tactility, it's about good balance. Any design and that sense of luxury, which is emotional, which is a sense of warmth, comfort, which I'm saying many times over, and a sense of belonging. That is going to be approached differently for each home, because each home is different.
I agree with you, and I like how you mention context and emotion in the same breath, because I think both of them put together is what is luxury and what will probably differentiate one project to another. And of course, it's the feeling that you get when you enter a space. Farah, let's hear from you an example of how you've integrated your version of luxury in a space that you've designed.
So a project that really stands out for us in our 12, 13 years of practice is one where when the client approached us, there was no brief initially about the source of products, but as we started to design, it was significantly different from all the other projects where the initial requirement is an Italian marble or we want a Minotti sofa, and that's what we associate. And of course, we educate the client on so many more brands and so many more materials. However, in this one, the client challenged us because, of course, just out of habit, we suggested Italian marble and all these brands. And he challenged us. He said, well, I want a luxurious home and I want it made in India. And we were stumped for a bit. And his requirement was also that it be a very earthy home where you bring the nature inside. And since luxury is space, and this project is in Madras where they do not have the luxury of weather, we actually created a very beautiful courtyard home and managed to cover it. A suggestion was to be able to open it for the 3 days that they actually have good weather, but he didn't think that was worth it. So we did give them the open space, the appearance of the courtyard, a lot of indoor plants, and just to sort of speak about the landscape, the landscape artist we hired, Varna, was very particular, and so were we, that even the plants that were chosen for that space were procured from just 2 or 3 kilometers away from that space. And not to say those nurseries didn't have beautiful plants. And so we took this challenge fairly seriously. So that project is one of our strongest ones, where all the furniture was made in India with Indian designers. There are only 2 things that were not from India, which is a floor slide and a door hinge to handle the weight of the main door, which was really heavy, and a trellis door, again crafted in Madras, Nexion tiles, and a huge stone that was discarded in a quarry that we brought and made a bar out of. And when you look at it, it really unconventionally exudes luxury.
I love the idea that now
And it's called Gaia.
the Indian consumer is now open to using products, and the whole localization aspect is now considered as luxury. So that's a great example for we come to the king of maximalism, would you? Maharaja of maximalism, like Iram corrected me. So let's hear it from him on a project that he's worked on.
So most of my projects, like maybe 10 years of my practice, always I followed this principle of luxury that I follow, contextualizing, translating client stories into a design narrative, etc. So recently we worked on a project that gave me utmost satisfaction, because I did whatever I wanted to. I experimented, I went all overboard, great budgets. These clients had, and this was one of my first retail project. I hardly do any retail project, but this was one of a large project, and it's for a jewelry brand. So, and the good part was, this is the B2B brand that they were coming up with a B2C version for the first time. So it gave a lot more opportunities to helm the entire project together with them as part of their team. So when they came to me, they gave me just one narrative, that we are into couture bridal jewelry. So for us, we supply jewelry to all top brands across the country. It's meant for the brides usually. So that itself gave me an opportunity to tap Indian weddings. So I just thought, why not I make a space which celebrates Indian weddings and ceremonies, because they are so, they're full of elements. There's a lot of other elements other than the decor part. There are a lot of other things, the emotions that's involved in a wedding, be it the culture part of it, be it the barats, be it the architectural importance. Like the first, for any Indian wedding, the first option everyone will hunt for Rajasthan. They'll come to, or they'll go to any heritage property. So how can I bring in all these elements? So we basically planned and zoned the entire space into multiple areas where there were bridal lounges, because when you're deciding on a jewelry, that too, which is a couture piece, you come with a stylist, you come with other members of the family, and you take everyone's opinion. So we created lounges instead of a general retail space. So and all these lounges had a story. One lounge was dedicated to the couture part of the wedding, so where we celebrated some of the old antique embroideries and crafts and fabrics, and we basically we restored some of the old poshaks. We took inspiration from Godapati work, and we also created a lot of graphics that were inspired from our Indian craft. And there's one more lounge which was dedicated to the culture part. So we took inspiration from the Lavazma light, we created the lamps, we took inspiration from brass band. And then also we did a lot of commission artworks that basically now how Indian wedding is taking a great, it is taking a modern twist as well. You'll see women with their iPhone or with their Dior clutch with their sari. So like it's such an interesting blend of styles. So there also we try to express through those illustrations that how the Indian wedding or Indian culture is evolving. So I took an opportunity to like basically tap all these points and used art as a medium to express. We designed wine bottle. Basically it's a wine cellar where we used a pole with the uncut diamond cork tops, like an installation. Just because in India is all about customization, bespoke. So like, and there were lights inspired from Varmala and flower decoration. So I went all out and like I took in things. And then the most interesting part was that I cannot design things separately. I need to give logic to the whole design. So we need to sit with a brand consultant and figure out that what's going to be the new integrated logo unit, and then what the brand deck will come up with. What is going to be the pattern? So we took inspiration from Indian Bowries, tessellated patterns, printed them on cushions, on the flooring. So we learned a lot from all of these Paris brands, how they anchor their the graphical approach and how they are able to communicate their brand to the world and take their ethos with these strong graphical elements. So we just tried to give, and we just we thought like these are the things that we have to work with them. It's not just one space. We think it has a scale, that it is going to communicate at multiple shows. It is going to go in a packaging, on their business cards, on their website, on their social media handles. So it was quite satisfying, like to work with, and then finding right objects. Like we went to a lot of antique dealers. We found out that our Indian princes and queens, they used to have such interesting custom pieces made by French luxury brands for them. Like Sita Devi used to have a hip flask made in the shape of a peacock by Van Cleef & Arpels because she used to drink a special concoction made out of peacock's blood. There was such interesting story. Raja of Kapurthala, he had a Louis Vuitton trunks. That was a wardrobe trunk, and he used to travel all over in his private train. So it was custom made to his. So that's the beauty of we took a lot of inspiration from these stories because Indian royals were open to trade. Like they traveled the world, but they always made sure that whatever they get is commissioned to their culture and taste. And that's what I was being able to do it. But in this regard, I tried to translate the ethnicity into a sort of into a modern lens and tried to make it more simpler so that it becomes more palatable to the global audience, or the modern, like you can say like a modern take on an Indian wedding, but in a frozen setting. So it was quite satisfying.
That's incredible. Amazing amount of research. We don't realize, but the amount of research that goes behind every little piece of design that we finally see. I mean, I've seen pictures of Shantanu's office as well, and it's stunning, and I can't even wait to kind of go visit this office. So there's a lot of work, a lot of research, and I understand that each designer has a different way to look at context as well, and how that comes across in the design is something which is really, really interesting in my opinion. And I love how all three of you have given us different elements of luxury, but in such beautiful different manners. Manish, would you like to add to that?
So one of the projects that we are really proud of getting associated with is obviously the new parliament of the country. and the whole wood finishes in the parliament are done with water-based PU. It's an environment-friendly product. And it fits into the space of luxury. We even heard at that point in time that opposition was talking about that we have created a parliament like a Ritz-Carlton and a five-star hotel and things like that. And in that kind of a space, an eco-friendly product getting used, and we thought that it gives us a lot of hope, because as an organization, our peer groups are largely in Europe. We are an Italian company. We have an Italian partner, and when I speak to our peer group there, they will talk about 50% of their revenue coming from an eco-friendly product. As Ajay spoke about, we are at 5%. But, at the same time, maybe even UK was at 5% 10 years back. Poland was at around similar kind of a range. And that gives me a lot of hope that, as these kind of landmark projects come in, as we get support from all the designers, I think within this space of luxury and, providing them all the glamour and aesthetics, we can still move into the eco-friendly products, and that is something that we are looking forward to, and Parliament is the project which gives us a lot of hope.
I completely agree with you, because being conscious about what you're using is something which has actually become second nature for most designers today, and I think that's extremely important when it comes to design. So I think most people are not even talking about it now because it's second nature. It's just not an option to be sustainable, not an option to not be conscious about what material or product you're using in your design. Rupande, you have been working with some of the best clients, and she always says that I'm really fortunate to have great clients. So please elaborate on the project that you got.
So yeah, I have been lucky. It's not been easy. The journey's been rough, but I've had luck with hard work and dedication. What I'd like to talk about today is a very, very dear project, project which is very close to my heart, which we just completed very recently. It's for an old club in Calcutta. Now Calcutta, as everybody knows, has been the erstwhile capital of India, and the heritage and everything, blah blah blah. It's still one of those cities that retains a lot of old buildings. Now there is this club called Calcutta Swimming Club, and it still retains its name Calcutta Swimming Club. It's not changed to Kolkata. So it's Calcutta Swimming Club, founded in 1800s and things of that sort. Was mainly, or only I would say, used by the whites. In fact, till the 1960s, they had a board outside the main entry of the club which said, Indians and dogs not allowed. Post that, of course, post-independence and movement of the government and everybody, Indians started getting membership into that club. But as all old projects and all old clubs and things go on, things started deteriorating, bad upkeep, political issues, internal things between the committee members and all. Eventually, they got a rude shock and they realized that, hey, you know what, our club was founded in 1800 something, and we need to do something to revive the space. And they approached me to do their bar, which was apparently the first bar in Calcutta. So it was at that point called The Bar. They said, this is a bar that we want you to recreate, and we want you to try and bring in modern technology, make it applicable and sort of interesting for the young generation to come in. Because everybody had moved to new pubs and new discos and things of that sort. The club culture, which is very strong in Calcutta, was losing out. And that's when I interpreted luxury as owning a part of your heritage. And then I started actually doing some research, found a lot of old information of how this club and this bar used to be. And we just finished the club in early February. Post that, so we tried to create a lot of the old Raj history, brought in new technology, but at the same time bringing the cultural relevance that the club has. It is 1800s kind of stuff. So you're talking about 300-year-old club. Today, with a little bit of pride and a little bit of humility also, I would say that we've had every club in Calcutta, club presidents and committee members, come across to see the Bar 1. We re-christened it and called it Bar 1. It used to be the first bar, and now it's called the Bar 1. And even five-star hotels like ITC members and presidents have come in to see how it has actually rejuvenated the whole club and the whole environment there. The club has become a thriving place only because of the bar. And now, they slowly by slowly realize that there is merit in reusing old structures, reusing old heritage that we have. And for me, that was the sense of biggest pride that I got when I was told about all this. That because of this bar, the club has got a new life. And to me, that was luxury. The luxury of owning your past, luxury of saying that you have a small bit of teeny bitty bit of role in trying to make sure that the legacy continues. So that was one project that is very close to my heart, and I'm very happy that it's doing what it's doing.
I can only say that may the legacy continue and to inspire all the next generation of architects who should look back at our heritage when they're designing for the future.
Thank you. So, Misha, I'd like to talk about one more project in a very short time. I know time is running out. So, we had this very old Bengali family. Now, luxury is also luxury of space, luxury of sensory objects, luxury of everything. They came to me with a project which was a small apartment in a new building. They are obviously, as we call it in Calcutta, they're Bhadralogs. It's very gentlemanly, very cultured, old family. They could afford one apartment. And while we were working on that apartment, they managed to buy the apartment above them. So during the process, we had to start adapting. And we said, okay, how do we connect the two apartments? And then they bought the apartment right next to it. So now we had 3 apartments. So they did not only have the luxury of a new lifestyle, they had the luxury of space, and it was, and fortunately or unfortunately, we had to interpret and keep changing every time when a new space came up. And they said, okay, now we've got this, the whole project, which was supposed to take about 8 months, got over after a period of about 1.5 years. Because each time they bought the new space, we had to keep reinventing the entire planning of the space. I met the lady of the house. The lady of the house is who is normally very involved in making of the house. I met her twice. The first time the day she had a puja, and the next time when I handed over her keys. But just the look on her face when she walked in was something that I think I will hold it in my heart for the rest of my life. And it was a lot of difficulty because I'm not a Bengali, but for me to understand where they come from and to bring in elements of their culture and their lifestyle into the new space that she had, which was luxury to her. So these 2 projects are very dear to me at the moment.
Fantastic. That's also the luxury of a fabulous client. Gauri, let's hear from you.
Okay, so I completely resonate with everything you said. For me, history and culture and incorporating that into our storytelling is very, very important. So we've done a couple of overseas projects, one in Sri Lanka, one in London. They both have a history.
Indian clients or other?
Yeah, they're both for Indian clients. I mean, the Sri Lankan clients, it was for a young couple. The wife was Sri Lankan and the husband was from Madras. And London, they were originally from Madras and they've been there 20 years. So what was nice about it was for us to incorporate the story of Madras in a different context without it being too on the nose. It has to kind of be sympathetic to the environment the building sits in. So the Sri Lankan, the project in Colombo was right next to the Parliament building. It was a beautiful site, but it was exactly when the financial crisis in Sri Lanka was going on. So we had a shortage of labor, material, all of that. But that's when we started looking inward and started looking at how we can use local materials. So we just used 3 materials, which is cut cement, timber, and wood timber, and whatever local furniture was available. But I think it's one of my most special projects. First, because it was done completely remotely. It was all through COVID. And also just the simplicity of it and how we used brass elements, we used local artisans, we used local fabrics, we sourced everything locally, and of course injected a story of Madras with like antiques and art that I kind of loved from here and went there. Luckily it was very close to us. So I think in the end, with that culmination of the Dutch influence, the Madras influence, and the whole juxtaposition of all these different cultures came together so beautifully. That's number one. Number two is our own studio, which is a 75-year-old Madras house. It's about 1,500 square foot space, which we've just recently completed. We first got the lower level and there was someone else above us, and now we've taken the upper floor as well. And I was scouring the city to find an old house. I was hell-bent on finding an old building, and we landed on this sweet little house, and it has your mosaic floors, a Madras terrace, the wooden rafters, and all the doors and windows and rafters were covered with like 20 to 30 layers of paint over the years, which we scraped down, polished. We left the floors as is, but we injected a little bit of modernity with the kind of furniture pieces that we used, the art that we used, and just kind of balancing that old and the new, the vintage and the traditional with the modern elements. I think it's obviously our studio, so it's very, very personal to us, but also just that's why I keep reiterating the fact that we kind of want to celebrate local craftsmanship and artisans and make sure there's a community still up and running and working. So we've got people from Pondicherry to come and do cement finishes. So it's an example of what we are as a brand, as a company, and that's something that's very, very special to us, and we hope to keep doing that as long as we practice.
It's very interesting that I see that almost all of you here are talking about how Indian design, which is rooted in traditional Indian, is now being modernized, and that is luxury. It's no more going to Italy to get all the furniture and placing it in a non-contextual space. It's about creating context, it's about creating comfort, it's about emotion. We've spoken about heritage, and we've spoken about craftsmanship. And am I right to say that it is now that the Indian consumer is now open to Indian craftsmanship much more than it was probably 30 years back? Is there somebody who can take that question from me?
I think it always existed. It's just that there was a brief moment when we were looking at foreign brands and looking at that as luxury, but we inherently have that luxurious mindset, Like I said, it doesn't have to be in terms of how much things cost, but it's just the detail, how detail-oriented it is, how beautifully it's crafted, how well done it is, and we're very, very capable of that. So there are sometimes that we have to look overseas for a few things, like Farah said, for a hinge or whatever it is, but I think at the core we are very capable, and I think that's a shift that is happening, and people are looking inward, and I think it's beautiful that we're celebrating India, within our country and globally as well.
I love the way you see celebrating India. It means so much. Shantanu, you have designed a range of furniture, lighting, a lot of bespoke products as well, and you're getting it manufactured in Italy as well. Would you like to give your take on Indian craftsmanship and how it is received by the Indian consumer?
So, of course, we have learnt a lot. We all of a sudden, we have learnt a lot from Italians, like the kind of sensitivity they have towards their own craft. So one thing I feel that our country wasn't a part of industrial revolution. So I think that brought a lot of gap in terms of what our abilities are today. Now, what Jaguar is doing today is like commendable. Like they are being able to match the standard that the world's best is giving. So I feel that in furniture or even in other elements, there is something. How do I put it up? Let's say there are a lot of industrial processes that it required, but we never got to research on those processes. So when I get my furniture made in Italy and it is designed to look Indian, the one thing that I really like about them is that they value every single thing, even a screw to the welding joint, to a leg piece, to the seat. For them, they care. So I think that's what and even Indian consumer, I feel that they are open to the world. They want everything. They are all global citizens now. Like so, they want everything from all over the world. But when you tell them that, we can customize things that looks special, that looks Indian, and it is meaningful, we're always open to that idea. But only thing that I feel that it would have been really convenient for us if we had that facility, if we had people with whom we can collaborate to create pieces that is delivered with that precision, with that sensitivity. So, but we are evolving. We are manufacturing furniture in India as well. And COVID taught us that we need resources here itself. We cannot import everything. And we're doing quite well now. We are exporting. We are exporting to our Dubai clients. We are doing houses in the Middle East, East Africa. We are using our own production facility. And we're learning and we're going there.
Absolutely, that's fantastic, and it's a great take on the fact that we have tradition, we have what we're working on right now, which is traditional modern, and we have a fantastic future to look forward to. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. I heard that bell, which was a calling sign that we need to get off the stage, but thank you so much. It was a very insightful discussion, and we can obviously take this ahead. Any of you have a question, please feel free to reach out to the panelists, and have a great day. Thank you so much for joining.
Well, that was absolutely incredible. So many stories, so many interesting ones. Let's give a round of applause, everybody. Come on.